Hey everybody, Preston Flatt here with my former Mormon missionary companion. Today we're going to bring you the mystical secrets of the universe, explained in plain English. And so from the world headquarters, from the catacombs, if you will, from the bowels of Preston Flatt, we bring you today's message, which is a consideration of this. Is it okay for introverts to look away? When they look away, and avoid eye contact, what are they doing spiritually and mystically? And is that okay? And is there some way that doing that, instead of being wrong, is spot on, is exactly on track? Today, brothers and sisters, we're going to blow your mind, because what they're doing in that moment is they're going to a place of refuge, a place that for that instance, for that circumstance, is in some way exactly right. And what it's like a bird, man. Not a bird man, but a bird. When you startle a bird and it goes flying off, it wants to land someplace because it's not going to fly forever, right? It's going to get tired out. It's going to look for a place of refuge. And it's going to find that place and it's going to land there. And the choice of that place of refuge is made after due consideration, after everything that the bird can see and hear and feel, and accessing all of its circumstances somehow in the middle of all those challenges and trials. There's some place that is spot on, and that's where the bird lands. The bird doesn't land to the right of that place, because if it did, it would sense that, no, this isn't quite the right place for me. It doesn't land to the left of that place. Nope. It doesn't land ahead of that place or behind it. But for that unique set of circumstances, there is a place that is just exactly right. And the bird literally goes to that place, and it's a place of refuge and a place of rest. And this is similar to the place that when someone looks away, they have their choice of all different places they could look, but somehow accessing all the considerations, they go to a place that's just exactly right. That in that place they can be at peace and settled and feeling good. Now what happens with the bird, is the changing circumstances around it continue to happen, right? For a while it's good in that place, but then, maybe a cloud will drift by and the bird might wonder, gee, I wonder what's in that cloud. Or maybe the shadow of a tree might start waving across where it had landed, and it might think, man, I don't know what the deal is with that shadow, but I got to process that. Or it might wonder and might see some bird way off in the distance and think, man, that could be a hawk. And the closer that bird gets, the more internally the bird, in its place, a former place of refuge, it feels the building of unique and changing circumstances around it, which develop in whatever way they do, but somehow eventually something gets to the point for that bird where the bird says, gotta go. So then it takes off and it flies to wherever else it might want to go. It might be because it's starting to get hungry, and if it's, maybe they eat corn or something, and near sundown they think, well, it's about time for me to get my corn. So they'll want to go to the cornfield and land. Well, why would they do that? Because hunger is also something that they experience in their place of refuge and in their life experience. It could be that, it could be something else, but whether from the inside or from the outside, the changing circumstances of life as they arrive cause the bird, and indeed the introvert, to want to always be in a comfortable place of refuge. And and sometimes the changes in the world, they'll arrive quickly, like somebody jumping out from behind a tree and going, boo, boo. And then the bird looks to the right, he says, gee, I wish you hadn't have done that. Gotta go. And then it flies off the opposite direction, usually the opposite direction, because there's this phenomena in life that people and birds and, well, I don't know how far that would extend, but basically that they go away from things they don't like and toward things that they do like. And so that's called aversion. Like the bird says, gee, I'd like to kind of avoid that, so it flies that way. Or affinity, like I love that corn there, and it wants to fly to the corn, so it goes toward it. So what's between the two? What's between avoiding and going toward? Well, it's a place of rest, And so what happens with the bird is it goes from one place of refuge to another, to another, to another. And indeed, it seeks the place of refuge. And indeed, as it flies from one place to another, it wants to fly also in the safest route, right? It doesn't make sense that it would fly over a fire and get its wings singed purposely when trying to get to the place on the other side. No, even in flight, it senses what's dangerous and what isn't, So even the pathway between places of refuge, it in itself is a place of refuge. The path is a path of refuge. It's a place that the bird surfs and holds to and keeps to its entire life, because that's the place of survival. If the bird goes too close to, like flying over a campfire, it's not going to survive there. If it flies too high, it might run out of oxygen. That's too high. So you don't want too low or too high, but there's a sweet spot right in the middle. You don't want to go too far to the left because you might fly into a building, or too far to the right because you might fly into another building, but between the two is the sweet spot where you can get through life without getting beat up. And that's the way it is with people. You got to check out my other videos, because I apply this to people, and I even give you the technique of how to set up the scale. Literally, to set up a scale by sampling a point on one side of the body, a point on the other, and having sampled those points, you now have the ability to access the wisdom of the Buddha, indeed, the middle way, because the very instant that you start to lean toward what you like or away from what you don't like, the very instant that happens, you realize it because you have set up the scale or the yoke, the mystic yoke. It's very simple. You got to check out my other videos to learn how to do that. But so that's the example of the bird. The bird not just arriving at a place of refuge, but even trying to serve it as best as the bird can, using all the available input. Of course, and it works out as good as it does, And that's what allows the bird to survive, And if a bird was ever sitting on a branch, just sitting there comfortably in the sunshine, you can be sure that that bird had chosen that place. It had chosen it for its sunshine, for the comfort of it, for the ease of resting there. And so not only birds, but people. Now we'll talk about the introverts. The introverts also. So what happens is, of all the places that, when you're dealing with an introvert and they avoid eye contact, right? they're avoiding eye contact, yes, but they're placing their eyes someplace. Doesn't that make sense? Well, I'm looking here. Why are they looking here, you ask? Well, of all the places that they could be looking, that's the one, the place of refuge right there. And surprisingly enough, that place is the place that they talk about in Buddhism and in Hinduism. They tell people repeatedly to consider and to meditate upon that state that a person arrives at when they first wake up in the morning, right? They're sitting there just staring. They can stare comfortably to the front, and that is the place. And that place is the place that the introvert turns their eyes to when they avoid eye contact. And it's also, now I'd like to give a shout out to Connie Ray Andreas, because I was watching one of her videos the other day, and she was saying, yeah, consider the new baby, before all these different facts arrive and the child starts responding to it all in life, and before they all of it starts registering and they get caught up in the world. Basically, the young child is just this isn't exactly what she said, but the idea that the child is just sitting there, laying there open-eyed, and just taking it all in, and not at the point yet of like dividing up the world into all these separate things. So basically, the new child, the newborn, is just laying there with this pure mind, which is like the pure mind when you first wake up, which is like what the introvert looks to find a place of rest, which is like the place that the bird flies to also. So the thing is, though, in this world, it's not always advisable to look away, right? Like suppose you're in a boxing match and somebody's coming at you like this, and you're thinking, that person's a threat. I'm going to look down and away like that. Well, based on your life experience, that is what has worked in the past. But then you'll feel pressures building up on the outside, Like, gee, I hope he doesn't hit me. And then the pressure of the fist hitting the side of your head. So you learn, well, that one didn't work that great. So that's interesting about that place. Maybe there's another place that I can look that would work somewhat better. So then eventually, like in boxing, you learn not to turn your head away. Like if someone's coming at you, you never take your eyes off the opponent. But see, that's not easy for an introvert to do, right? So this training of establishing a scale and abiding in the place between left and right, because you have a scale, you have this, you can choose this one good thing and find rest in the place of me. I mean, not me here, but point to yourself. But you can do that, and indeed the training is that no matter how the world presents itself, you can look in one place and still with this scale surf it. You can look another place and still surf it. So basically you develop freedom to still be balanced. And the very instant that you start to lean or to go off track, it registered. This is, let's see, Panya, Sati Panya. And it's like the wisdom of the Buddha is what I'm trying to say. It's the very same thing that when you watch the breath, at least when I watch the breath tends to roll as it does, right? It kind of rolls in this kind of a way. Well, I've done this idea of surfing without a surfboard for a long time. And so I've gotten really used to abiding in the center, at least as to left and right, and how to hold into this sweet spot no matter what the world will present. Almost the idea of trust in this place, absolutely this place of strength with all your heart, and lean not unto your own understanding. in all things, in all your ways, man. Acknowledge this place. And you can acknowledge this with surety, with certainty, with the wisdom of the Buddha, because this is the middle way. Which, because you've set up a scale, you get used to hanging out there, and you know the very instant that you depart. But if you don't know how to set up the scale, somehow you got to find the place between opposites. And that's why with the Buddhist practice of observing the breath, you observe it, yes, but you want to find the place of ease within the breath, right? You'll find that if you go too much this way, there's not ease there. You depart from the ease. If you go too much this way, it departs from the ease. But there is a sweet spot between opposites that you can hold to and you can follow actually wherever it will go. If your center is clear, and if you've trained to even sense where that place between opposites is. So this idea of the Buddhist practice, I think it is even easier than it's different than this idea of surfing, mystically surfing without a surfboard, which is this one that I was talking about. Because you breathe and you will find a place of ease. And you don't prescribe that it has to go one place or another, man. You just follow it wherever it'll go. And just like a mystical cross, man, practice it in this way gives you the vertical axis of the cross, that you literally surf the place between opposites. And then following the breath in this way, it's between the too high and the too low. That gives you the horizontal axis of the cross. And this is a cross that you can literally take up, and as it says in the scripture, and follow me. Me is just, it's not me here, but you have a sense of I. It's like Ramana Maharshi, and I call him Rubadub Bahachi, respectfully, but that's my affectionate term for him, where he says, trace the I thought back to its origin, man. If you do that, that's what you do. You follow the I thought. And then in Buddhism, they just follow the breath. And you follow it just wherever it goes, man. But what I'm trying to say is this is not, even though it's more of a horizontal type, rolling type of breathing thing, in whatever way the breath unfolds, it's still the place between opposites. So if you train in this way, setting up the scale, you obtain the wisdom of the Buddha because you learn what the middle way is, and you learn to sense the very instant that you depart from it, right? This is another weird thing I got to tell you. If you find that you have departed from that, if you find yourself leaning, this very simple example, use the sitting bones, right? Sample the sitting bone on the right and the sitting bone on the left. Try to feel them evenly. So you get to where you can feel them pretty evenly, but then what happens is the world continues to present itself to you in unique ways, just like it presented itself to that bird that wanted nothing more than refuge. Well, it might have wanted something else, I don't know. But the world changes around you, and you will find yourself leaning, and you don't even have to know why you're leaning. If you use this scale as a key, you don't even have to flip and know the first reason, like why am I leaning? You don't even have to know it. But you will sense that you're off because now you're feeling this sitting bone more than this one. So you can correct the posture if you want. How could you do that? Well, if you're too attached to this, you release it. And the thing is, you know exactly how much to release it because of the wisdom of the Buddha, the wisdom of knowing where the middle way is. And knowing with absolute flippant certainty the very instant that you arrive in that place. So, and this is the other cool thing. So one way to correct it would be to release attachment to this side. and have a postural correction in this way, right? But there's another way to correct it, and this is where it gets to the mind and the spirit. Not that the other one doesn't, but check this out. You're sitting there feeling both sitting bones evenly, right? And now, feeling them evenly, just put your mind on that one. Do you see how you feel that side now more than that one? Simply by moving your mind. And then if you put your mind on that one, you'll feel that one more. So what happens is this technique of learning how to surf without a surfboard, you're in the human frame, you're in this world in a body, right? But it teaches you how to use your mind to move it around in such a way that when the circumstances of life change, you can be ever steady in spite of what the physical posture does. Check this out. It's almost like, I'd say, almost like the image stabilization on a camera. Now, image stabilization, let's just use this dimension, right? But there's a way that, or let's use this one, the very instant that a change arises, like something's jarring on this side, it instantly puts an equal and opposite one on this side so that the net change is zero. But that's not the best example. The best example is, a good example is think of those boats, those racing boats. Did you ever see those boats with the big sails? I guess it's the America's Cup or something. They're sailing along, and then they start to tip. And when they tip one way, the crew runs to this side of the ship, and they lean off, right? They lean off this way. And that's so the boat doesn't tip over. That's because they've got wisdom, basically, the wisdom of the Buddha. So then the boat, this is the boat right here, and these are the people for this example. So then the boat doesn't tip as much, and then the people can go back to the center. And then if the boat tips this way, the people run to this side. But can you see that through it all, the net change is zero? The boat tips this way, the people run to this side, and there's like an equal and opposite change that keeps the boat from tipping over, and there's a middle way, which is the wisdom of the Buddha applied in racing and sailing boats. But this is something else I want to point out to you. So the boat's like this. It starts to tip. The people run to this side. They have to, they know with certainty exactly what they have to do. Do you understand that? It's because of the wisdom of the Buddha in practical life. And then when the boat returns to normal, or returns to balance, what happens? The people are free. They're free to run all around the boat and do whatever they want. They can set up a checkerboard and sit around and play checkers, or they can just walk freely to and fro. So this center place is a place of freedom. But as soon as the boat starts tipping this way, sorry, I'm just too excited about this. As soon as it starts tipping this way, they go that way. But look at this, the net change is zero. Do you see that? There's a central place, a central axis, that for this consideration is a place of refuge for the boat and for the crew that takes it from point A to point B and gets it smoothly, safely, and securely through life in spite of the storms of life. So now coming back to the introvert idea, yes, I have really been an introvert in my life, and I have looked away. I've tried learning karate, and I've tried looking away when someone was just punching the snot out of me. I learned that it didn't work too well. And then I learned this way of surfing without a surfboard, mystically surfing. And then with that, it's simply a sport where it's almost like the same sport as what a skateboarder would do or a surfer. You know how they have one foot on one side of the board and one on the other, and between the two they simply sink their center of gravity. And so the sport or the game is that no matter what the wave, no matter what the conditions, to always surf and hold to and abide in this place. And you can use this technique to liven up your entire life. Like if you're sitting in the boringest lecture, the stupidest, boringest lecture you've ever heard, and you're thinking, I can't wait to get out of this dumb old thing, you can sit there and establish a point on one side. You could use the sitting bones, or you could sample other points. You could use these, K27. This is a really fun one to do. Or these, or just basically you gather 2 or 3. You gather 2 or more points in my name. And then you know what is in the midst of them. That's the practice in mystical Christianity. But you do that, and it's like a sport. It's like life is never boring again. And then when you do the Buddhist one, which I think is actually seems to be easier because there's less clinging. I mean, you don't want to cling, right? You can hold, but you don't cling. And when you surf, there's a tendency sometimes to grab this side and pull it instead of releasing this way, to release toward the center. So if you do that technique, use release. Okay, I don't want to get distracted. Pretty much that's about it. But if you're an introvert and you're not used to looking away, I mean, you are used to looking away, at least in the past, that's the way it's been. You found your place of refuge. That place, that feeling that you look to, that is what you want to keep. You keep that feeling and memorize it and marinate in it and keep that place of comfort, right? And then you can apply that toward watching the breath to find the place between too high and too low, between left and right, and just watch that. Or you may want to just surf without a surfboard first. That's that's what I do. I just set up the scale, and then come what may, I can look wherever I want. I can be greeted by any appearance of life, and through it all, the sport is just to feel both sitting bones evenly, if I use the sitting bones. Or I could use this or any other place. And if I don't want to be too long-winded, but I have to tell you that there's also a training method where you use the segments of the fingers of the hands as if they are prayer beads or mala or rosary beads. You pick one point on this side, one on this side, and you hold to the middle way. And then you keep one side the same and change the other one. So there's a lack of symmetry between this side and this side. And then you change this again. But through it all, through this endless variety of external changes, you train yourself that no matter what the varied and infinite variety of presentations, through it all, you still hold to and surf this center place. Now, those of you that aren't into mysticism, it's going to sound flippin' weird. I know it is. I don't care, man. I'm trying to help you guys, especially if you're introverted or if you want to learn how it all fits together, according to Preston Flatt. But I hope you like that. I'm going to do more on that, but especially I'm going to do more on following the breath and watching the breath, and should a person force it to make it keep to any set pattern or anything like that. The short answer to that is no. You just follow it wherever it goes. That's all you do. And you just hang out in that comfortable place, which is exactly the place that the introvert turns his or her eyes to as a place of refuge. You just keep to that place. So much love. I know it's the longest video ever, man. I'm sorry about that, but I just get going. That's the way it is. So would you please like and subscribe? Consider being a monthly supporter, if you will, because I don't have anybody doing that yet, and it would help me a lot. And And maybe check out some merch if you want to wear kind of a goofy outfit that will attract some attention to you. Gee, I wonder if this would work. No, you might like this one. Anyway, I have a lot of different shirts and stuff on the link below, so much love. Thank you. Bye.